Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the studios of Grafton Community Television. It's election season, and we always bring the candidates in for a chat. This is Meet the Candidate. I'm Bob DeToma. The guest in studio today is Rebecca Soco. She's running for the seat on the school committee. Welcome to the studio.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
And as we discussed before the cameras went live, you were not raised in Grafton.
Correct.
But you live here now. So
I do.
This is your opportunity to introduce yourself a little bit.
Awesome. Thank you. So I'm from Vermont, originally, Brattleboro, in case you were wondering. And I lived there for much of my life, and then I went to college. My undergrad was at Tufts in Medford. And after that, I really felt sort of out of sorts, didn't really know what to do with myself, so I moved to San Diego because it sounded like a great idea. I met my husband, I got my teaching credential there, and I taught middle school science there for 7 years, and then I taught community college at San Diego City Community College, and then I decided to go to vet school, and here is one of the best vet schools you can go to, so why not come to Grafton? My husband and I, and at that point my oldest daughter moved here. And since then, we have had 2 more kids, and we love it here. But I'm also really invested in the school system because I have 2 kids coming into the school system in the next few years, and I have one already entrenched and very happy there. So I want to be involved.
So where do you work currently?
I work at 2 different animal clinics most of the time. I work at MASH in Hopkinton, and I work at Riverland right over the border in Millbury, and it's been really nice working there. I've been there since about January, both of those places. Before that, I was at Second Chance in Worcester, which is a wonderful organization as well.
So are you separate part-time positions at those 2
I
clinics,
am.
or?
I'm doing contract work so that I can spend a little bit more time, have more flexibility to be with my kids, because my kids are really important to me, and it was really a really wonderful job opportunity to be able to sort of do that.
Okay.
And it gives me time to do this
Sure.
as well, which is wonderful.
Oh yeah, you need tons of time to come down.
Exactly. 3 o'clock, here I am.
Do you have a specialty in veterinary medicine, or do you?
I do small animal, dogs and cats.
Yep.
Yep.
What's the most challenging part of that job? Getting bit.
Cutting nails. Honestly, cutting
On
dog
the cat
nails.
or the dog?
Dogs. I hate cutting dog nails. Those black nails, oh, so scary. I'm going to make them bleed. It's the worst.
Yeah.
Literally the worst part.
Of course, the owner's looking over your shoulder.
Exactly,
Oh,
of course.
please,
Oh, don't bleed.
Yeah, I've seen the whole thing.
It is funny, but that really is what stresses me out more than anything else at my job.
I can imagine.
Yeah.
You're going to run for school committee.
I am.
You mentioned off air that this is your first foray into the world of politics.
It
and
is.
Running for school committee. And did you wake up one day and decided, damn it, I have to run for school committee? Or how did you come to that decision?
So interestingly, it was about a year and a half, not quite a year and a half ago, there was an open position in the middle of term for school committee, and they were just holding open interviews, or you could submit your name and interview for that. And so I submitted my name at that point, and I did interview. And it was a wonderful experience, and I wasn't chosen, but it felt very low pressure, low commitment, because it was only a few months, and I was like, let's see if this is something I like. And so I did that, and it was wonderful. I got really good feedback, and I also realized that at that point, my work schedule didn't really allow me to have the time to be able to go to all the school committee meetings and put in the work that I would want to do a good job. And so now that my professional life has given me a little more flexibility, I was like, this is it, let's do it.
So as a viewer and a parent watching school committee meetings, what did you focus in on? What was your point of interest?
The things that I found interesting is a lot of the conversation, I feel, not all of it, there's a lot of focus all over the place, but a lot of the conversation and focus I feel like is on the high school level, and I, having children that are not even in kindergarten yet, I really feel like I have a voice that's not being heard as much on school committee, and I would love to sort of bring that forward. And something I'm really passionate about is expanding preschool programming as well. I know that a 3-year school committee position is probably not going to change dramatically everything in town regarding preschool, but I think the value of preschool education is just in general amazingly important, and I want to make sure that voice is being heard as well.
Running for office, people come up to you and say, oh, I'm so happy you're running. This is what I want you to focus on. What have those conversations been like?
It's been interesting, and one of my personal tenets about running for office when I decided it was going to be something I wanted to do is that I want to be upfront about what I believe, because I don't want you to vote for me if you don't believe the things that I believe. I think it's really important. I want to be able to be true to myself, but also be true to the people that are voting for me. And so if people are coming up to me and telling me issues that I absolutely can get behind and absolutely hadn't thought about before, but I can see how that's valuable and important, wonderful, amazing. But if it's something that I genuinely feel like is not in line with my beliefs, then I will say that, because I think it's important to be upfront. And there's a lot of vagueness in politics, and sort of I want to be direct. I don't know if that'll be successful, but
Right.
that's sort of how I feel.
I never to be a politician, I never thought vagueness was a skill set.
It kind of is, though.
Yeah, I
you
guess
know,
in a way. Yeah,
it is.
Yeah, I guess in a way.
Yeah,
You can soft soap most anything.
exactly.
Interesting. And the conversations that you've had on the street with people, you can't get away from the negative stuff.
Correct.
Have they been mostly positive, or they've been 50-50?
They have, actually.
That's good.
Mostly positive. There's definitely some feelings around, making up for the lost time during COVID and those sorts of things. And honestly, all of the issues that have been brought up to me, and then having spent time watching the school committee meetings and going to the committee meetings, I really think we're addressing them all really well so far. They might not all be enacted, but they're all being talked about, and I think they're all being heard. So that makes me feel really good about where we already are. And it feels good to want to join a committee that I feel like is already doing really good work.
So the topic of COVID and kids falling behind during the COVID period, how long would they out of school on average?
Well, it depends, because you could opt. So they were out of school for March, I think is when it first started,
March 18th,
through the end of that school year.
Yep.
And then you could opt into the hybrid program, or you could have stayed home that
Right,
year.
right.
And so I think there was,
So for the kids that were home,
the kids that were
they
home,
were home for how long?
they could have been home for the whole school year.
So a few months and a year.
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
And it's a big difference.
Right.
And we actually opted to keep my daughter home for that year. We had a newborn baby, and it was scary.
Seemed right.
It seemed like the right choice for us. And it was interesting watching that devolve, honestly, in my home. And we were very fortunate in that we had a nanny coming in to help with things, so that really made it a lot more possible. But I have 3 kids. We couldn't be watching her and helping her all the time. And at some point, we realized that she wasn't turning in any work anymore. And I'm very fortunate, she's very fortunate that she regains those skills very quickly, but that's not the case everywhere.
Yeah.
So I think the pressure on teachers is enormous at this point, and really addressing that is important.
That's interesting. The question that came to mind to me recently was that the protocols that are in place for when kids go back to school in the fall would seem that they are the same types of protocols that you would use after a long COVID shutdown, just more robust.
Right.
For lack of a better phrase.
Right.
And where do you think the kids are now? Do you think that they've recovered emotionally, and is their alertness level hanging, higher or lower, or what's your sense?
So academically, I think they're making good strides. I think it'll be sort of a long process for some kids and a shorter process for others. But emotionally, the emotional toll, I think, is something that we are across the board underestimating. The toll on parents' mental health, the toll on kids' mental health, I think is huge. And again, I think that burden is often now falling on the teachers to sort of catch those problems or support those things. And it is something that's actually very important to me moving forward, is making sure we have systematic mental health screenings, trainings, support for students at every level. It's especially hard at the younger levels, I think, to pinpoint things that are issues. Many teachers probably have amazing skills. They have years and years of experience with that age group, but kids that are falling through the cracks at that age and it's not being addressed when you're having mental health, anxiety issues. It's a big deal, and obviously at the high school, middle school level, it can also have huge repercussions. And I would love to see implementation of a broader mental health program in our schools. And I know that's something that's being talked about, and it would be wonderful.
And it makes the hair on a lot of people's necks stand up straight.
Yes.
Because I think back to being a child, and there was a school nurse.
Yes.
And I think if you've got 100 people in a room and took a survey, how do you feel about the school nurse? 99% of the people would say, yeah, everything's cool. We like the school nurse.
Whatever.
But if you talk about a school psychologist, people are woo-hoo-hoo. And I often think, as a child, had there been a psychologist available, not just a counselor or whatever they,
Right.
a guidance counselor, that might have made a difference, not only in my attitude towards school, but just to have this, if not all, the student population. But people, they don't want to submit their children to that for whatever their reasons are, and that's fine.
Right. Yep.
But I think that in the outcome, it would benefit the student, benefit the child.
I think so. It sort of leads into my other point, which is I also think there's across the board in high schools, there's a focus on, like, our success is measured in test scores and going to college. And I would love mental health to be more important in those respects. But also, I think that if there's better counseling, better mental health, it helps students make better choices when it comes to what's going to make them happy long term. And I know for myself, I went to college, I thought I knew what I wanted to do, but that's because I was 18 and no one had really talked to me about it. I had made my decisions, and I just wonder if I had, really had some more in-depth conversations with people who really cared about my future and really knew me, not just in an academic way, but in a mental health way, in a, an I'm a human being way, that maybe I would have been given some guidance that would have led me in a slightly different direction. Maybe I wouldn't have been going to vet school at 38 years old. Maybe I would have, had a more direct path, and my path has led me in a beautiful arc of things, and I'm not unhappy about it, but I've definitely spent a lot of my life sort of searching for what the right thing for me is, and it would be wonderful if we had really more targeted resources for students earlier on to help them find those things.
And as I look back on my life as a student, because it's the only experience I have, because my son's lives as students is a blur, right?
That's fair.
But I get the feeling that, like you said, it's enter the school program, graduate, and you're off to college.
Yep.
And it's almost like, that's the only path.
Yes.
And college isn't for everybody.
It's really not.
And I know it wasn't for me.
Yep.
And then you start to think, well, if I don't go to college, have I failed?
Right.
Or your parents believe you haven't gone to college, you failed.
You failed.
But there are other avenues of education that you can pursue.
Yes.
That doesn't, you don't have to go to Harvard, you don't have to go to State University, you don't have to do this, you don't have to do that. And I wonder even, I know we have a number of students from Grafton that have graduated and gone on to military academies, which in my estimation is a huge success.
It's a huge success.
Right.
It's an amazing opportunity.
Right. So does the pipeline need to be reconsidered?
I strongly believe it does. I think Massachusetts is such an amazing place because we are on the forefront of rethinking some of these things more than a lot of other places. The technical high schools that we have are phenomenal. It's such an amazing opportunity. And I think the beautiful thing about technical high schools is it's not funneling you away from college, it's funneling you into a place where you have opportunities to learn things, but you can still go to college. But that's also not the right choice for everyone. And we're looking at, my own children getting older, and we're talking about the college situation. And I have a really hard time thinking to myself, I'm going to put in all this effort, push my kid to go to college, pay all this money, which I think is a whole nother can of worms, higher education financing, but not going to go there. And they don't necessarily have a plan. It's just sort of like a checkbox. Now I've gotten that degree, and now what? I feel like we're almost enabling isn't even the right word. We're almost teaching students, like, you don't have to decide yet, you don't have to decide yet, you don't have to decide yet. And it's like, well, you do have to decide something. You have to if that something isn't going to be your forever job, that's fine. But I think spending 4 years at a college where you don't have any idea what you're doing with yourself is also not necessarily the right choice for everyone.
I often think the opposite of making the decision is eliminating other suspects. Like, yeah, I don't want to pave roads. No, I don't want to be a veterinarian.
Right.
And then you can narrow the focus down.
Yes.
But to say, okay, you're 7, make a decision. Is Harvard
Exactly.
or Yale? You know,
Right.
That's not going
Yes.
to cut the mustard.
Exactly, and I think that's really where we have an opportunity in the high schools and even the middle schools is to really sit down and talk to students about what their jobs are going to look like, not what their college majors are going to look like. Because I majored in biology, which worked out well for
Sure.
veterinary medicine, but I graduated with that biology degree and there was nothing I could really do with it if I didn't go on to higher education, which like I was fortunate enough to be able to do, but not everyone can and not everyone wants to, and that's fine. And I think people really need to be able to look at the options and make a choice that is going to take them on a path that's going to actually lead them to satisfaction in their life. Especially now, there's so many different opportunities than even before COVID, so many working from home opportunities and things that just not in a job way maybe are that different, but in a quality of life way are very different. And I think that these are all things that we can bring in to talk to students about and sort of just see, you know, what do you really want your life to look like? Not what do you want your job to look like?
Do you have any concerns or fears about running for office?
I do. I have a lot of fears.
Yeah.
I think about sort of, you know, I'm sort of putting my family out there,
Yeah.
and that's a little bit scary. And fortunately, I feel good about myself, but I also feel like you know, the issues I have feelings on, I can stick with those, and I'm just going to stick with the issues and not dig in anywhere else, and that's fine. But losing is also a little scary, but I think
It's not the
losing
end of the world.
exactly, and I think
School
it kind of
committee's not going anywhere.
Exactly, and I mean sometimes I'm like, you know, if you lose, look, think of all the character you're going to build, so
Yeah.
it'll all be fine.
It's true.
Yeah.
It's true. All right, well, we've reached the part of the program where I'm going to turn it over to you and let you address the voters. And as we
excellent.
discussed, that camera over
That's
there
my
represents the
camera.
voters, so take it away.
Hi, I'm Rebecca Soco, and I'm running for school committee. I have 3 kids. 2 of them are not yet in the public schools, and 1 is, and I love the Grafton Public Schools. I would love to be involved in making them even better than they already are, and I would love your support if you want to come out and vote for me. I'm also on Facebook at Elect Rebecca Soco, and hopefully I see you at the polls.
And don't ask her to trim the dog's nails.
That's right. I'm not doing it. I charge $50.
Well, thank you. My guest in studio this afternoon has been Rebecca Soco. She's running for school committee here in Grafton, and it was a pleasure to chat with you. And I'm Bob Detoma, and on behalf of everyone who's very talented and works here at Grafton Community Television, thank you for watching. Thank you.
Thank you very much.